I accepted a job. They brought me up here from the University of Arizona, and they told me winter wouldn't be that bad. And I'm pretty sure they lied. I think they told me they had snow removal. But clearly they don't. Those snow trucks are like the Easter Bunny, a myth, right? But anyways, so I came up here in 2002 to accept a job at the University of Saskatchewan. And I accepted a job doing what I love to do best. And I think it's something that you love to do too. I came up to teach politics, because I get to talk politics every day. And you guys like politics, that's why you're here, right? And I came up here to talk about politics in a particular area, obviously. My area is Aboriginal governance and Aboriginal public administration. And there is no more exciting time to be doing what I do. And most of what I say in life is these are exciting times, and they truly, really are exciting times. In the best of ways and kind of maybe the worst of ways. It wasn't a good week to be a First Nations University of Canada week. But anyways, what is really exciting is that there was a book written, it was written in the year 2000. And that book was written by a professor named Alan Carnes, and it was a book called Citizens Plus. And in that book, he drew on the work of the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples, and he started his book, Alan Carnes started his book, and he said in the year 2000, he said, within a span of 25 years, Aboriginal peoples and their rights have emerged from the shadows to the sidelines to occupy center stage. And it's true. Aboriginal peoples and our rights have emerged from the shadows to the sidelines to occupy center stage. Now, in this statement that Alan Carnes writes reflects the emerging political importance of Aboriginal peoples in their rights in state relations, in our government, and in our social relations, in our relations that we have in this street. I could tell you, but I wouldn't want to disappoint you or depress you, but I could tell you that I have lived all around the world. I have never seen a more racialized place than this city. But that would be depressing, so I won't tell you that. All right. In the face of a multitude of historical and contemporary challenges to tribal life, Aboriginal people have successfully used a variety of venues and approaches to protect and to promote their interests. And I think at this point, I'll just take a little side note, and I'll say that what we know from Alan Carnes as well is that Aboriginal people and non-Aboriginal people are different, but our differences are not total. So most of the work that we are doing is part of community building for the greater good, for everybody. So there are differences, but those differences aren't total, and that's the point that I want you guys to remember. So Aboriginal people have used a variety of venues and approaches to protect and promote their interests. I don't know if you know this, but Aboriginal people have litigated at the Supreme Court of Canada. Did you know that? Do you know we take lots of people to court? I don't know if we're going to take a Saskatchewan provincial government to court for cutting off funding, maybe. I don't know. But anyways, they have negotiated comprehensive modern-day treaties. It's very, very exciting to be a BC Indian because we're negotiating treaties for the first time. It is exciting to be a Saskatchewan Indian because we're doing treaty renewal when they get around to it. But I still have dreams. But we have entered into jurisdictional delegated agreements, for example, in child welfare, in our education in our schools. And we have, as Aboriginal people, we have increasingly entered into mainstream electoral politics. Now, when formal mechanisms have failed for Aboriginal people have resorted to tactics of direct action and confrontation to get public attention for their particular cause or situation. As a result of this multi-pronged approach, Aboriginal people have made significant progress in terms of getting our needs and our interests onto the federal and provincial government agendas across a broad range of policy sectors. We are getting our interests met in our healthcare, our economic development, our taxation, and our education. These are, as I repeat myself, these are really, really exciting times. Now, one of the most exciting things, there's two exciting things I want to talk about, and then I'm going to introduce you, so I'm on it. So there's two exciting things. One of the most exciting things that we're talking about in the current era is the idea or the discourse of Aboriginal self-government. Now, Aboriginal self-government, if you're as old as I am, Aboriginal self-government, if I look at the whole policy field, Aboriginal self-government is actually a relatively new phenomenon. It's really only been around since 1982, maybe the 70s, the 80s, so it hasn't been around that long. So Aboriginal self-government is a relatively new topic in Canada's political culture. So from a position, if you mention self-government in the 1960s, no one would have a clue. If you mentioned Aboriginal self-government, if I do this, and I actually do this quite often, if I went to Tim Hortons on 8th Street at Clarence, and I interviewed random people, said, have you ever heard of self-government? Everyone's heard of it, right? Right? Has anybody not heard of self-government here?
I wouldn't think you'd get more than 70% would know.
Well, they've all heard of it, but most of them don't like it. And they all have, even in this room, we all have different understandings of what self-government is, right? At any rate, the discourse of Aboriginal self-government has gained a lot of momentum. And one of the exciting things is that we're moving beyond talking about self-government, and I'm happy to be a part of this thing, not talking about self-government, but making government. And not making any government, but making good government. And making accountable governments. And that is what I'm doing my dissertation on, is how to measure any government on a continuum of accountability. Because we have issues. I don't want to scare you, but there might be issues of accountability at the federal level. And there might be issues at the provincial level. And there are definitely issues in the Indian order of government. Definitely. At any rate, there has been, I think I want to do a very obnoxious side issue with the talk about self-government, and I can't resist mentioning the First Nations University of Canada. And I think that the First Nations University of Canada, one of the beautiful things about what's happening there, my point of view on that is it is a growing pain of self-government. So don't throw your hands in the air and don't be like, oh my God, those Indians, they can't handle anything. They can handle things. We are in the middle of one of the most exciting times to be an Indian. We're in the middle of an intergenerational change. And with that intergenerational change, our leaders who have been in power for a long time, they're not actually educated. But the new slate that are coming in are educated. So the provincial government can cut funding, $5.2 million for First Nations University of Canada, or they could just wait till the new leadership does what they were going to do anyways and revamp the board. Which leads to an interesting point on representation. So when you look at the era of self-government, you can look at ideas of representation, and ideas of representation are completely important if you look at electoral strategies, right? There is a heightened awareness of the need to ensure the inclusion and representation of Aboriginal people within the multiple sites of power and decision-making in Canadian society. If we had more Aboriginal people in more places of power, the benefits would be plentiful. We need Aboriginal people require greater participation in formal state mechanisms at the federal and we need them in federal and provincial election executives. We need to see Aboriginal people in our legislatures. We need to see Aboriginal people in our judiciaries. Aboriginal people also require greater participation in the governance and administration of non-government institutions such as the media, newspapers, universities, colleges, non-profit organizations. Increased Aboriginal participation